Hi, I'm Mark. Welcome back to Foothill Paint Fabrication. As you can see, we're back on the hood for that 1950 Chevy truck. Previous videos, we pushed out that big old dent that the speaker, when it fell, it put a big old dent in this thing. And then we got to try out our brand new bullseye pick that we made here in the shop. And we got this thing looking pretty good. So today we're going to get some body filler on it. I've already done some preliminary work. As you can see, I've got tape. You guys watched me before. I like to use tape, keep body filler where I don't want it because I get a little carried away spreading that stuff around. So I've got the seam sealed up here and then the little groove where the strip down the middle goes. And then I've roughed up the paint around it because we're going to take the body filler right on top of the paint like I usually do to blend it all together. And I've taken some masking tape and filled the holes here, the recesses where the emblem goes, because we don't want to have to be sanding that out or digging it out of there. So let's move over to the bench, get some body filler mixed up, and get it on here and see how this thing comes out. Okay, we're going to use some Evercoat Lightweight. This can's been sitting around for a little bit because it's been a minute since I did some body work. We've been working on the Chevelle. So I spent almost a good 10 minutes stirring this up. Now, any of you who've done any body filling before, you know you let the can sit, the resins come to the top and the fillers go to the bottom. So you need to make sure you mix it up every time you use it. Even if you use it the day before, give it a good mix, because what happens is if you don't keep that mixture evenly proportioned throughout there, what will happen is the parts that make the body filler harden will come to the top, and then you end up using that up as you get towards the bottom of the can. Then you just got a lot of filler with almost no activating resins. So make sure you stir it up. Now 10 minutes I spent with this, and I use a nice strong stir stick. Dig down all the way to the bottom till you can see the sheet metal, and then once you get all that pulled off the side and the resin distributed evenly, you got to give it a nice good stir. And if you run into hard chunks and stuff that don't want to stir up, you probably need to get rid of the can and just buy another one. Don't take the chance, because if you put, let's say you spread this on the car, and it's you're getting towards the bottom of the can and it's not mixed up properly, or you've run out of the stuff that makes it harden properly. You put it on there, it hardens up, you think everything's good, you sand it, you paint it, and then 6 months later something happens underneath and it something goes sideways on you, just because you tried to use some old filler. So be mindful of that. We're just going to mix up a batch. I don't know how much it's going to take. It shouldn't take that much, because I think we did a pretty good job on the sheet metal work. So we're just going to mix up about that much right there. Hopefully it'll be too much. We won't need any of that, but we'll see. And the hardener's been sitting around, so I made sure to knead that up really well to make sure it's all still cream, not liquidy and chunks of blue or whatever color. So I'm going to lay some of that down here, and I've already put some of this out on a paper towel to make sure it was good. And so I spread some out on a paper towel just to make sure it was going to come out nice and creamy and not all runny. And then if it's runny, it's no good. You got to chuck it and go get a new tube. We're going to go ahead and mix this up real quick. It's cold in the shop right now. I actually had the can of body filler sitting out in the sun, try to warm it up a little bit to make it spread a little bit easier, because what will happen is this stuff will get so cold. Cold slows down the reaction, but cold also makes it thicker and harder to spread. So when you're trying to do a nice even spread of your body filler and the stuff is kind of thick, then it makes it a lot more difficult. So I'm going to stir this up like I usually do. I'm going to get my squeegee here, or my spreader, and we're going to get this turned over a few times. I put quite a bit of hardener in there. It is 45 degrees in the shop right now, so it's kind of cold. We're going to turn it over like I always do. You can see the streaks in there. So we always want to turn it over and scrape whatever you're using. This is an old sign, piece of aluminum. I cut a hole in it. You can use anything. You can buy them. Don't use cardboard. I did that when I was a kid, and all you do is get cardboard, paper, or whatever fiber in your body filler. So we've got it mixed up really well. There's no streaks in it. I know it's completely mixed up. Let's move over to the hood and get this on here and see how that dent repair is going to come out. Okay, to prep this, you guys, we talked already about the masking tape, but I scuffed the paint really good with some 80 grit. I got some 40 grit on the steel and got it blown off, cleaned off. Everything's ready to go. The sheet metal is pretty cold. It's pretty cool in the shop, so we're going to have to roll this out in the sun to get it to set up at a decent amount of time. And just like always, I'm going to force the filler down onto the sheet metal. You really want to press it in. You want a nice physical contact in there, just like we always do. And since I masked those holes, I can go right over the top of those and don't have to worry about them filling up with body filler. Now I'm going to skim this whole thing, and then we'll sand it all down and see where we end up. So I've got the whole sheet metal covered, so now I can start sculpting it. Then I'm just going to bend the spreader and try to make it match the contours of this hood the best I can. We're going to run a cheese grater over this just like usual, but I want to go ahead and try to help myself out a little bit. Okay, I'm going to leave it alone. I usually mess with it too much. We're going to leave that. I'm going to roll it out in the sun, hopefully get this to set off. We'll get the cheese grater on it. Okay, got my cheese grater, got my wire brush to clean the cheese grater. Actually, I probably let that go a little. Boy, it got warmer than I thought it was going to out in the sun. Let it go a little too long. Okay, that's most of the big stuff. You notice how it doesn't want to dig in across here. It's because it's already so smooth that the teeth really don't want to bite anything. They just want to slide over the top. So if you're new to body filling and if you get after it with a cheese grater too soon, you're just going to dig it all off there and you're going to have to refill it. So by waiting a little bit longer, like I did by accident here, it stiffens it up so much it's a little bit harder to make a mistake. So if you're new to it, let it set up a little bit more. You want it firm, but not hard, and it just takes experience to know what to do on that. If you go too early, obviously it's going to clog up your cheese grater, and that's why I always keep a wire brush. If it gets clogged up real bad, you can soak it in lacquer thinner, and then wire brush it. Usually it'll take it off, as long as it's not cured and really old. So that's about all I want to do right there. This is going to take a lot of hand work in this area, but we're going to let this set up a little bit more, and then we're going to get after it with some 80 or 40 grit rather, excuse me, and then just start roughing it out. Okay guys, I'm not going to bore you with a bunch of sanding, but I just want to talk to you briefly about how to shape this in. So consider this like a globe, even though it flattens out right here. If I sand it just like this, you know, straight up and down all along here, that just give me a bunch of flat facets on there. But what I want to do is, so this is round right here, and if we consider this the North Pole right here, then what we want to do is we want to sand towards the North Pole. So we'll sand, and then we'll keep aiming at the same spot as we go around, okay? And that's what's going to keep that spherical shaped, all right? Now this has a little bit tighter shape to it, so then we're going to find the North Pole on that, and then we're going to also do the same thing over here. And usually, like if you guys watched me before, I'll get this transition right on the money because we know we're good up here, and then I'm just going to translate that all the way down and just push it all the way back down. And so we know we're nice and smooth and it's going to look great, and then we're just going to bring it all the way down and be done. So we're going to do the same thing over here, and we're going to work all the way out to this lip. Now, I may start at this lip and work up, and so we'll work this way, we'll work this way, and then we'll just wait till they meet in the middle, and that should be, it should look good. So I'm gonna go out and get after it. I might time lapse this or just jump around a little bit, and then I'll bring you back and bring you in close, and we'll take a look at it. So I'm just gonna get sanded on it, and then you guys can watch along. So as we transition off this radius right here, and this flattens out, this has a slight curve this way, but it's pretty flat going this plane. So I'm just gonna go straight up and down and go crossways, and we're gonna try to get this flattened out, and I'm gonna start working this up to that here in a second. Okay, by using the round DuraBlock here, it's rigid enough where I can sand in this radius right here, and you see me turn my wrist and go at a 45-degree angle, but it's rigid enough so I can come up here on the flat as well. So it kind of gets me to the point where I can get back at it with the longboard. So what I can do is I can bring this up here. That way, when I'm sanding with the longboard, it's not digging in and putting a line in there, which you'll find as you do it. So sanding with coarse sandpaper, you just want to sculpt it. So this is 40 grit. Sometimes I use 36 grit. It's very coarse, and it removes a lot of material very quickly, but you have to be careful. You have to know when to stop. So you just want to sculpt it into the shape you want. Then you want to go to 80 grit. And the reason for that is, I don't know if you guys can see it, but there's massive scratches in here from this stuff. So you want to sculpt it down, and then you want to stop. Otherwise, you're going to be trying to fill in all these massive craters or grooves you put in here with a 40 grit. So I'm going to keep roughing this out, and then I'll bring you back when we're about ready to switch over to 80 grit, and then we'll take a quick look at it and then start hitting it with some 80. Okay, we're done with the rough-in stage. It's looking really good. I'm pretty happy about it. You can see some, I don't know if you can see, but there's some pretty big 40 grit scratches in here. I got it all done. I kind of hand worked this area a little bit here just with my fingers, which I always tell you not to do, but sometimes, you know, these weird shapes, your hand works best. So you just have to make sure that, you know, when you're transitioning, you have a light touch and move fast. So what'll happen is your hand will kind of skim over and just hit the high spots. So you don't want to just kind of bear down on one spot with your thumb or something. So we're going to switch over to 80 grit. I just put a fresh piece right on this little short board here, and we're just going to start shaping it in like we did with the 40 grit. And it's going to remove a lot of material fairly quickly. Just because it's a fresh piece of sandpaper, but the 80 grit just really gets down in here, it gets to work on it. So I'm going to start it here at the top. I've got some 40 grit scratches up into the paint here, and we'll see if primer can get those out or if we sand them out with the 80 grit. If not, I'll probably put some glazing putty up here to help take care of those. So I can feel it's lumpy, but it's got the general shape, and that's the whole idea. We want to sculpt it, and then we want to smooth it. So that's what the stage we're in right now. And I'm just going to kind of come across here, just like we talk about, and I'm going to bring all this together. And just like that, it goes pretty quick. And I can already see some sheet metal coming through here and there, which is fine. That's no problem. We actually want to see through the body filler if we can. And then I'm going to run this line right here because this is kind of a flat strip. And then I'm going to just kind of work this round over here. So we got a nice line right here to work from, And then we're just going to move that over, and we're going to move this down. We'll move that up, bring it all together. So you can see it really feathering out here. And so this is where the paint was ground away, and that's where the sheet metal is right there. So that's acting as our transition. So there'll be body filler on here because we've removed all the paint. Now, if this was stripped down to bare steel, we would work this out and it would just be, you know, body filler with some steel around it. But since we have paint here, we want to float that in there. We don't want to, you know, go back way back here and then just have to fill this into steel and then get primer to transition that. It's better off just to bring it right up to the paint. It's going to adhere just as good or better, and it's way better to get your dent transitioned really nice back to the old paint. Okay, this is starting to feel really good right here. Really good. We've got a little bit over here I want to work on, and we want to work from the bottom up over here. I'm going to see if I can grab another piece of 80 grit and put it on that round DuraBlock, and we'll do the same thing we did with the 40. We'll kind of bring it up, and then I'll just use this one to tie it all together. I could probably do it with this. Sometimes if you take your sandpaper and you slide it over till it's just kind of hanging over the edge here a little bit, what that'll do is it'll give you an edge to work. Something like that, so it's coming off the flat and going into that. But you can see the line right there where it's kind of transitioning from flat to round again. So we want to make sure there's no divot right there. So we're going to go ahead and work this out right here. Actually, that feels pretty good. I can probably, there's a little low spot I remember right about here from the dent. So I want to make sure that I don't concentrate too much and actually sand that dent back in there. So I'm going to work this area. Let me get some more of this done, and I'll bring you back and we'll take a good look how well we're doing. Okay, I already dug the other hole out with the masking tape, so I'm just going to push in with an awl. We're just going to break that away. I don't know if you guys can see that breaking away there. See how slick that works? Now, could you imagine if I just left those and had to sand all the body filler out of there? It'd be, you know, a pain. And don't worry, I used to do stupid stuff like that. So learn from my mistakes, learn how to mask this stuff, and it keeps the body filler from going where you don't want. Then you got all kinds of cleanup. So let me sand this up real quick, and then I'll bring you in close, and we'll take a final look at it and see how it came out. Okay, guys, all done with the 80 grit. Got those holes cleaned up real nice. I don't know if you guys can tell, but you know, I know that you can see the spots where the sheet metal's just starting to peek through right here, but there's some spots over here I can see with my eyes, but it's not showing up on camera, where the sheet metal's actually coming through. So this is really thin, just like you want it. I didn't do too bad on that sheet metal work, so I'm pretty proud of myself. It's something I've been working on a lot. So we've got some nice transitions from the paint to the filler. It's got some nice shape to it. It feels really good, guys, really good. But we've got some bad spots in here. We're going to have to glaze. We've got some heavy scratches here and there. And right here, we've got a little chunk from the body filler. I didn't float it in, push down hard enough or something, had a bubble or something. And we got a little low spot down here and just some scratches and stuff. So we're going to get some glazing on this later. We have some chips and some other stuff to fix on the hood. So I like to, you know, keep the production up. So I'm not going to mix up glaze just for that. I've got to prep all the other areas, do it all at once. So this thing is looking really good. I'm really happy the way it came out. And that's about it, about getting this dent out. So we're going to stop right there. Next step, we'll be getting some glazing and some repairs on this hood, and then prepping it for some primer. Now we still have to do the other side of this dent, so I want to get in there and get working on that as well, but hopefully that won't take that much. We just need to smooth it out a little bit so it looks pretty when it's nice gloss blue up underneath there. Okay guys, that just about wraps up this video on getting body filler on the speaker dent in the hood. It came out really nice. It's got a little bit more work to be done to it before we can get primer on it and see how it really came out, but that'll come out in another video. And as far as I know, Darren, the owner, is waiting on this hood. He's got the truck pretty much completely put back together. I think he might have 1 or 2 small things left to do, but we really need to get this done and get it back to him. I can get it off my project list, and he can get that 3100, that 50 back on the road and really enjoy it. So I'm really looking forward to bust this out. This is one of the biggest hurdles on this hood. The rest of it's all pretty much easy peasy, so hopefully we can roll through it pretty quickly and get it back to him. Thanks for joining me here at Foothill Paint and Fabrication. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you haven't already. Hit that like button and comment, guys. If you like what you see, just drop me a little comment. I'd love to hear from you. I love interacting with all of you, and I really appreciate it, and it does help the channel. And mash that bell icon so you get notifications every time I release a new video. We'll see you on the next one.